This thing on. Statutory disclaimer and opening statement. The Zamo the Destroyer show is for iguanas only. Tail whip and claw your pet humans until they leave the room before you listen, because this show is not intended for lesser sorts of creatures like humans, be they anteaters or firemen, chimps, other mammals, birds, pigs, frogs, fish, snakes, dragonflies, or geckos. Are they all gone now? Them gross little vermin. Speaking of the geckos here, I mean, at least when humans are abnormally small, they can join the circus and we can laugh at them. You little gecko freaks aren't even good for that. Anyways, get rid of all the undesirables. They all gone? Humans, geckos, chimps, all of them? All right, then we can begin. Howdy, you're listening to the Zamo the Destroyer show, a podcast by an iguana for iguanas talking about important iguana stuff and issues. I am your host, Zamo, the Omniscient. You ought to know me from the comic I used to appear in, Zamo the Destroyer. If not, I hope you realize your grandma hates you. But I suppose you can catch yourself up at ZamoTheDestroyer.com. But grandma's still going to think you're a putz. Hey, speaking of grandmas, I guess Georgie's clan are still all uppity about my remarks at their grandma's funeral a few weeks back, because I have received yet another book from the monkeys aimed at improving my attitude. You know, I think I mentioned a few shows ago, Georgie gave me that stupid 700-page Emily Post etiquette bullshit book. I have used it, though, mostly to dispatch many a spider to the great web in the sky. The back's now all sticky and black with bug legs smeared on. Someone should tell that Emily Post broad that maybe she should have gone with a black cover instead of a white and aqua one. Would have hidden the bug splats a lot better. Anyway, I did flip through to random pages when I figured it was a good idea to sort of placate Georgie by having the book open in front of me as if I was going to read it. And I accidentally did absorb a few items, but, you know, not the sort of thing I think Georgie intended for me to notice. Like, for example, at the funeral, clearly since I'm not family, I must have been the guest of honor at that funeral, especially considering that I'm the best educated of anyone of Georgie's clan. So, you know, it's very rude to correct a guest of honor on their manners and faux pauses. Also, seeing as Iggy's here doing anthropological research, in a way, me and Georgie have a workplace relationship, and she's starting to veer into hostile work environment territory. You know, she's not very tolerant or polite. You know, if you ask me, the way she talks to me and complains and stuff. Also, I would point out that on page 457, it says that roommates, other housemates, you know, whoever shares a house, they should respect each other's alone time. Georgie never respects mine. Well, I mean, you guys remember me talking about on Valentine's Day, I was busy making stuff, you know, brain electrodes, and Georgie just wouldn't leave me alone. And she also doesn't respect the closed door to my secret basement lab, and that is specifically ordered on page 473. Respect each other's private spaces and closed doors and whatnot. She don't do that. Also, I don't think confiscating my soldering gear, Dremel tool, and the pile of brain electrodes I was making to use on bunnies from the local parks constitutes respect others' belongings. Anyway, most of it was boring crap from what I could see. And I mean, there's a shitload of stuff on weddings I didn't even bother to pretend to read. I mean, I figure if Georgie ain't landed a husband by now and she's in her late 30s, my life's too short to waste reading about something that ain't never going to happen. But anyway, so I got a second book. I think from one of Georgie's dipshit cousins. What's her face? The one with a bunch of fat-ass chubby kids and like 4 ex-husbands. So, you know, the opposite problem from what Georgie has. The book is called First Impressions, What You Don't Know About How Others See You. Now, I must say, this one I liked much better. For one thing, it's only 200 pages, which is still too long, but you know. Also, the pages themselves are much smaller, with a lot more white space and bigger type font thingies than the Emily Post one, so it's much less information. The one problem is I'm not going to be able to kill any bugs with it, though. It doesn't weigh nearly as much. But on the upside, whoever wrote this one, the monkey authors, they understand things. Like it says on page 6 that once you know how you come across, you can make changes if and when you want to. You know, they acknowledge that maybe I'm perfect as I am. And I don't need to change, and I ain't gonna change, and I don't want to change. They understand that. Much smarter than that Emily Post broad. Also, they sort of write it so that you can learn how to make the person you're talking to feel better about themselves and give tips to that end, which I guess is the usual intent. But, of course, if they're telling you how to do that, they're also kind of inadvertently telling you how to do the opposite in order to make the monkey feel worse about themselves, which I think is a little closer to the general iguana goal. So with that in mind, I think this is a much more useful book. Also, it tells you human body language cues so you know exactly what's working to make them miserable so they'll leave you alone in the future. Very helpful. It also gives tips on, how to make it clear to the humans that you outrank them. Obviously, we iguanas have our own methods, like climbing something so we can physically look down upon them. Or, sitting on top of their heads or whatever. But it helps to know also that if you talk about living a life of leisure, you don't have to work no stupid day job and imply that you have a lot of money and no debts. That also makes the monkeys feel very insecure. Yeah. The only thing is, at 200 pages, best to find out if there's an audiobook version, or a Coles Notes version. You don't actually want to invest time of your life reading the whole damn thing. But still, outside of that and the not heavy enough to splat spiders thing, it does look like a promising read. A good guide on how to be even more obnoxious to lesser creatures. Which I don't think is what Georgie's dumbass cousin meant to do, but hey, sorry if I sleep here. It's time for my next nap. But, I wanted to say, I suppose that the Bug Splat book broad would say, Iguana ought to write a thank you note to Georgie's stupid-ass cousin because this book is so much more useful, but screw that. Besides, my frog slave Hoppy, obviously I ain't going to write it myself and delegate it. Hoppy doesn't know how to write too good. Maybe I'll tell him to scrape some of the bugs off the back of the Emily Post book, stick those in an envelope as a gesture. Nah, he'll just eat them. Screw it. Anyway, I guess nap time. So that's it for this week's show. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes. Just search for Zamo the Destroyer. In fact, actually, grab your monkey's credit card and order like 5 or 6 or 20 extra computers and subscribe on every single one of them. Let's get the subscriber numbers up, eh? Tell your fellow iguanas about the show if they don't already know about it. Of course, they won't admit to not knowing about it because then we'll know they're not the cool iguanas. But anyways, but only iguana friends, Don't be telling none of them monkeys about the show. We don't want them listening. So if your pet monkey snoops your iTunes, obviously, that's a problem. Go to my website, zamothedestroyer.com, and you can grab individual episodes there, stream it, whatever. Don't let the monkeys listen. Beat the crap out of them if they try. And on that note, talk at you eggs next week. Bye.